This video is brought to you by ASUS. You see, I've always been fascinated by the idea of a desk that moves with me. And with remote work becoming the norm for so many, the appeal of a portable setup, one that is easy to build, tear down, and carry, has never been greater. Lately, with travel becoming more frequent on my end too, I've been diving deeper into what makes a desk both practical and portable. So today, I want to show you what I've learned. I have broken down this video into 4 chapters, and as always, all the items I'm talking about will be linked in the description below. So chapter number 1 is of course external displays, because let's be honest, a portable desk setup with just a laptop is basically just a fancy coffee time outside. The first and most accessible scenario for many is a laptop paired with a tablet. Apple leaned heavily into this with the introduction of Universal Control and Sidecar. And while I won't be focusing exclusively on Apple here, it's a great example of how seamless things could get. With those features, I can either control both devices with a single keyboard and mouse, or extend my Mac screen to the iPad wirelessly, giving me a true dual monitor setup on the go, no cables needed. By the way, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe, because why not? So this setup is lightweight, super quick to deploy, and thanks to the long battery life on most M-powered devices like the Macs and the iPads, it's ideal for casual work anywhere. And yes, this is also possible outside the Apple ecosystem. You can absolutely pair a Windows laptop with a Galaxy Tab or even an iPad using an app like Duet. For around $4 a month, Duet lets you extend your Windows display to an iPad wired or wirelessly. The wireless performance can be a hit or miss, but with a cable, things are relatively good and worth exploring if you're mixing ecosystems. Now, the Duet app itself technically should support 120 Hz, but I couldn't make this work for some reason, even with cable. But 60 is just fine. What's cool here is that Duet simulates mouse clicks, which means I can use the tablet as a tablet to control the Windows device, which is pretty cool. The second scenario is a laptop paired with a dedicated external monitor, something that I covered in more details in a previous episode, which I'll link at the end of this one. Here we're back in a dual display territory, in most cases horizontal again. The catch here is that this setup does require at least one USB-C cable to connect the laptop to the monitor. If your laptop can't power up the monitor on its own, which can drain its battery fast anyway, you'll need a second cable for power, ideally plugged into the wall. That's honestly the best choice for longer working sessions anyway. If your laptop is already plugged in, then you're good to go with just a single cable plugged directly into the laptop. So, there are 2 things to consider when purchasing an external monitor. Depending on how expensive it is, you might have the option to use the monitor itself as the charging hub for the laptop, meaning you can have the monitor plugged in directly into the outlet and just a single cable ran to the laptop, which will charge the laptop at the same time, which is awesome because one less cable to worry about. Second, some monitors do not allow their peak brightness unless they're plugged into the outlet, so keep that in mind. Despite the extra cable, this kind of a setup comes with big advantages, especially when it comes to display options. You're no longer stuck with the size or resolution limitations of a tablet. A good 15.6-inch display can be just as sharp, bright, and color accurate as the iPad or another tablet, but it will be at a cost. There are also some other things to consider. First is the size. That 15.6-inch sweet spot is right on the edge of what's still considered portable. If the monitor isn't thin and light, you'll feel it in your bag. Second, image quality. If you care about color accuracy and get a budget panel, you'll likely end up using your laptop display as the main one and the external as a secondary reference. Third, and this time positive, is the size in terms of pixels. I actually stopped carrying my iPad just as a second screen for this very reason. A slim, purpose-built monitor gives me more screen real estate than every other large tablet that is offered out there. Now, once you introduce a dedicated monitor into the mix, your existing tablet becomes even more useful. You can combine both into a single triple display setup: laptop, external monitor, and a tablet. For example, on a Mac, I can just use Sidecar to wirelessly project to my iPad or extend to the iPad, then connect the external display via a single USB-C cable. If I am okay with whatever battery life that combo gives me, I now have a full-on 3-display layout, perfect for content creation, multitasking, or editing workflows. All of this is still horizontally oriented and ultimately depends on how much desk space you have and how you prefer to position your gear. But what if you want to take things further and not compromise on the image or the real estate? Well, let me show you what I have in mind. This is the Asus ZenScreen Duo OLED model MQ149CD. At a glance, it looks a lot like a laptop, but once opened, it becomes clear just how different it is. Believe it or not, this thing weighs only 1.07 kilograms, which for perspective makes it lighter than a 13-inch MacBook Air. To make it even more convenient, Asus includes a super nice, precisely fitted sleeve that's perfect for hauling it around, especially at TSA checks. That being said, Asus's multiple awards in the portable monitor space are no accident. The ZenScreen Duo is designed from the ground up for mobility and has been rigorously tested for shock, drops, vibration, and bumps. But enough about that, let's talk about screens. The Duo packs two 14-inch displays, each with a 1920 by 1200 resolution in 16 by 10, which unfolds into a massive 20-inch canvas. These are 10-bit VESA certified true black OLED panels with 100% DCI-P3 and HDR400 support, and they look absolutely gorgeous in person. Built into the back is an integrated fold-up stand that's super sturdy and allows for ideal placement in both horizontal and vertical orientations. Port-wise, it's clear this thing is designed for flexibility. Two USB-C ports for display and power, a mini HDMI, and a USB-C DC port for laptops that cannot power it up directly. All the cables are included in the box, by the way, and the USB-C ones are angled at 90 degrees for cleaner cable routing. Next to the stand at the bottom, there's a standard thread for a tripod mount, which is sold separately and lifts the monitor above a laptop for an incredible vertical tripod monitor stacked setup. On my ZenBook S14, once I installed Asus's Display Widget Center, I was able to run the ZenScreen Duo with just a single cable and toggle between 4 modes. Independent, mirror, split, and extend. Independent mode supports multiple devices. For example, I could use the bottom display as a second monitor for my laptop and the top for a gaming console or something else entirely. Split mode, on the other hand, provides a waterfall-like single view, perfect for coding or long documents. Then there's the extended mode, which is my favorite. True triple monitor productivity on the go. Mirror mode, though, is where things get a lot of fun. You see, the panels swivel 360 degrees into what Asus calls tent mode. In extended mode, that makes for a cool dual-player portable console setup. But in mirror mode, tent mode becomes this brilliant way to present something one-on-one. Think real estate, property showings, presentations, super effective. And when connected to a Windows PC, Display Widget Center enables the ZenScreen Duo to sense orientation and switch automatically between portrait and landscape. Pair this with the amazing aluminum chassis and the fact that this is the world's first stacked-on foldable dual OLED portable monitor that comes with a 3-year OLED warranty, and it shouldn't be a surprise why I'm so excited. It's truly something special, and I encourage you to check it out in the first link in the description below. Now that we've talked about external displays, let's move on to stands, because they matter just as much, especially if you're working for more than an hour or two. I'll start with something simple, the Moth Slim and Smart Laptop Carry Sleeve. It is already a great sleeve on its own, but the real magic is in Moth's signature origami design, which unfolds to give the laptop a lift. Now, with this elevation achieved with Moth sleeve, there's not only improvement when it comes to ergonomics, but there's a lot more freedom when it comes to placement of the secondary display. So if I decide to have more of a vertical stacked setup like this and introduce maybe a keyboard and a mouse to the mix, things look a lot more interesting. And this is just happening with a sleeve and a protective case for the tablet. If you need something more stable and ergonomic, a folding aluminum stand is the smarter pick. Proper placement makes a huge difference when it comes to productivity, and a stand like this gives your laptop the height it needs to pair well with a second screen, whether it's a stacked vertical layout or set up side by side. But whichever stand you go for, there are two things worth keeping in mind. First is of course the weight, because the more you pile on, the heavier the backpack becomes. Second, collapsibility. No matter the stand or the brand, if it doesn't fold almost completely flat, it's a no-go for me. Really, if I can't slide it into a backpack or at least, put it in my suitcase, it's not worth considering. That's exactly why I've settled for this collapsible stand by Ugreen. It doesn't offer the highest lift per se, but it folds down to almost nothing and adds barely any weight. For a setup that's built for travel, that trade-off is more than worth it. Chapter 3 is all about peripherals and accessories, and before we get into mice, I need to highlight something that's often overlooked: a mousepad. You might not think it's essential until you find yourself working on a glass surface. It doesn't matter how good your mouse is, glass throws everything off. The fix is a thin and lightweight mousepad that you can roll up and slide into your backpack without even noticing that it's there. There are even adhesive style mousepads that stick to your desk or just as easily to your laptop's lids. Super handy, and I'll link some of those below. Now, as for mice, that's more of a personal call, but for travel, I'd skip the big ones. As much as I like the MX Master, I wouldn't carry it on the go. Instead, I'd rather give up a few extra buttons and some ergonomic bulk in favor of something lighter and more portable. For me, that's the Logitech Pop Mouse. It runs on a single AA battery that lasts 2 years, and believe it or not, I actually find it ergonomic mostly because of the subtle rear bump that presses into the palm just right. No charging, lightweight, and it gets me 80% of the way there, which for travel, I think is more than enough. Now sure, you can use your laptop's built-in keyboard in a portable setup like this, but to me, good ergonomics means stepping back from the screen, which also makes it easier to take in multiple screens at once. That's why I always carry an external keyboard. Over the years, I've landed on the Satechi Slim X1 as my go-to. It works seamlessly across both Windows and Mac, and its footprint and thinness are nearly identical to Apple's Magic Keyboard. But if you want to go ultra portable, the Logitech Keys to Go 2 is hard to beat. It's ridiculously slim, has a clever built-in flap for protection, and runs on a coin battery that lasts up to 3 years. Now, to keep everything powered, I rely on what I call my grab-and-go kits. A small pouch packed with my essential cables, hubs, and dongles. Thankfully, most gear these days is USB-C, so what really matters here is length. For that purpose, I carry 3. A 2-meter cable for tricky hotel plugs that could be far away, a 1.5 universal one with attachments, which is very clever, and a short one for cleaner table setups. All of mine are from Nomad's Kevlar series because they support up to 240 watts of power delivery, which means even laptops are covered. And just in case, I also carry their charge key as it's super compact, supports 100 watts of charging, and doubles as a data cable when in a pinch. All of that, including the brick, fits into a single pouch, and here's why that matters. It makes me backpack independent. I can just pull the pouch out and drop it into any other bag without worrying about forgetting something in a hidden internal pocket. For protection of the main gear, sleeves are non-negotiable too. The Asus ZenScreen Duo already comes with its own, but I'd strongly recommend wrapping your laptop too, especially for airport checks where you'll want something easy to slide in and out, protect, and repack in a second. Alternatively, you can think in the direction of this hybrid laptop sleeve by Orbit Key, the purpose of which is to cocoon the laptop as a carrying sleeve, but also serve as a large mouse pad and a pad for a setup like this, where you can just place the mouse here, open the laptop like this, and have more of a organized situation and a lot cleaner than any coffee table that you might be, working from. Right now, my entire setup breaks down into 2 sleeves and 2 pouches. 1 sleeve for the laptop, 1 for the ZenScreen Duo, 1 pouch for charging gear, and 1 for peripherals and other miscellaneous stuff. And of course, the keyboard slides directly into the backpack too. Despite how compact it all is, the output is incredible. You're looking at a setup that weighs way below any carry-on limits, but delivers full flexibility wherever I go. If you want to dive deeper into tiny accessories and dongles that makes this whole thing click, I've linked my previous portable desk setup video right here. Like and subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is E, over and out.